it's always been stories about nature. It's always been the type of story that changes people's perspective on their environment.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to We Are Duffree's Perspectives.
We have a lot of responsibility. We reach thousands and millions of people through the projects that we're doing.
We are a creative agency maximizing the positive impact on businesses, society, and our planet.
So if you currently look at all communication marketing campaigns, it's not always representing society.
Radical change needs to happen now. Otherwise, brands and companies are going to get left behind.
You know, if you're a marketing manager, if you're in a senior position, you're an opportunity maker. So how can you redistribute those opportunities in an interesting way?
Every week, founder Mitchell talks to visionaries and change makers who are shaking up the status quo.
We create content for every living soul on this planet.
Get ready to be launched into a new perspective.
Quick fire round questions.
Okay, let's go. Boom.
Something you've always wanted to do.
Tell my mom I loved her on her last Mother's Day.
Best compliment you've ever received.
Smile.
What's your favorite film?
Oh, my favorite film. This is going to be awkward, but it's The Grinch That Stole Christmas.
This planet or the next?
Do I want us to be a multi-planetary species? No. Planet of the Free. Let's go.
Yeah, you ready?
I'm ready. What you got?
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself a little bit? Who are you? Where you're from?
My name is Safi Graauw. I'm a director with an earth sciences background. I was born in Suriname.
Earth science?
Earth sciences, yes. You could say earth sciences or planetary sciences. It's basically you have soil, water, air on Earth. And you study all those three compartments. Mm-hmm. And if you put those three compartments together, in some magical way, you get life. And then earth sciences also studies that. And then it also studies intelligent life, like humans. And then at the same time, we look at the relationship of humans with their direct environment. So what are we doing to this planet, and how is the planet reacting to us? That's in a nutshell what earth sciences is.
And what are we doing to the planet?
Well, not much right now.
Do you think the reason to study earth science comes back from where you grew up when you were this young? I've been to the place where you originally come from.
Coroni. Yeah. When I was little, nature was always around me. So when I lived in Suriname, we didn't really have TVs. We didn't really have any, for that time, modern things. At least not that I can remember. But when I came to the Netherlands, all of a sudden, you need to realize I'm a kid that comes from houses that aren't bigger than maybe 2-3 stories. It's always hot. Most of the time the sun is out.
I really remember the palm trees and the heat, like the tropical heat.
Yeah.
And not much places of shadow.
When it rains shortly. And there is a very diverse culture in Suriname, but it's not as diverse as it is in the Netherlands. Now, take a 6-year-old boy from that and put him into the Bijlmer, which is 12-story buildings, winter.
Wow.
Yeah. It's 12-story buildings, it's winter, it's highways, it's airplanes, it's different noises. It's TVs.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know what a TV was until I saw one in my mother's living room. I was like, okay, cool. And when I was watching TV, I used to watch National Geographic, Discovery Channel. And the problem and the main reason why I started, why I thought I would do something with nature is because I would watch these shows and then they would be like, oh, the elephants are so majestic and they're great and they're beautiful, but humans are doing this, humans are doing that. And I think I was about 7, 8 when, I started watching these shows. And if you're 7, 8 and you see these majestic animals that are elephants, then you get this intrinsic motivation to at least do something about it. And as I went with this feeling, I found out, That's what you need to study to understand it, is earth sciences.
So how did you end up as a filmmaker then?
Dude, I mean, the intrinsic motivation was already there, right? And a friend of mine was doing audiovisual design in Rotterdam at the Willem de Koning Academy. And we would both come from Zaandam and had to take the same trains because the stations were on the same track. And he started asking me as a model for his projects, for his film projects. And I think that's where my curiosity kind of was sparked. Because if you do a scientific study, you have to have a natural sense of curiosity. So you need to have this curiosity that exists from within you. And I think that as soon as I saw that camera in front of me, I just started asking questions. How does this work? How does that work? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is creativity? Am I creative? And then I asked my friend, I said, hey, how does a camera work? I want to capture the moments that I see. I want to capture all the places that I go because I get to see great stuff on these excursions. And that's where I think my first ventures into what creativity is, like the very, very, very first times were then. That's when this kind of spark came, I think.
So if that's where your creativity exploration started, how did that continue? What did you do after?
I think it's a personality trait of mine to just be curious and not really care about failing. When I was, how old was I? 16 or 15 until my 26th, I did karate, and I did it on a relatively high level, so competitively. And I had a sensei. So I think the karate part of my life was very influential on how I would look at failure, or if I would be scared to do something or whatever. And as long as somebody didn't die, I didn't care. I was going to try. And I think that's what made the momentum. And I think that perspective just helped me a lot in believing in myself, not being scared of failures, and looking at things step by step by step by step. And that's how I am as a director.
Do you rather work in a team or individual?
It doesn't really matter. I think it's about working with the right energy and the right people. It's also not about, film is a team sport, basically. So, no, if you prefer to work individually, then please become a painter, or a photographer. But film is a team sport where you have to deal with people's energies and fears. And as a director, I really don't believe that you've been touched by the hand of God. You're a person that manages other people and you steer them towards your idea, or at least a figment of your idea. And I think what directing is selecting the right people to work with and then letting the process go.
What are the kinds of stories you like to amplify?
So it's always been stories about nature. It's always been the type of story that changes people's perspective on their environment. That's always the stories that I've been wanting to work on, and I've worked on a lot of them. But now, to me, there's another factor that's sneaking its way into me, and that's identity. I think identity is a beautiful thing to play with.
Currently, most of your work is short form, like commercials, fashion films, music videos, like all quite short.
Yeah.
Would you like to start making long form content?
I think a story is I think a story takes the time it needs, right? So it's not the other way around. Like, I want to make a long story and then talk about some ant. So you'll end up in a long format if the story needs it. I think that's so. I don't know if I'm going to be the person that decides.
Yeah.
I think the story will decide whether it's going to be a longer format or a shorter format.
Very adjustable.
Yeah.
How do you find your stories?
Most filmmakers would say, I watch all the French new school people. And the what's this name? See, it's my direct environment, man.
Yeah.
I don't really bother watching other great makers work. I respect them. I respect everybody in the field, but it's my life, and it's my path.
So what or who inspires you?
For example, I have an aunt, which is my mother has passed away, unfortunately, but she has always been my mother's guardian, no matter what. Now, these are the type of people, and their stories are what inspires me. So it's really from my direct environment. For example, I have a cousin. His name is Kwame. He's a great father of 3 kids, and just his energy, the way he is in life, inspires me. So for me, I don't really look at big directors, or it's just very close to me. I just look at somebody, I sit in their house, I feel the energy that they've constructed for themselves. And I'm like, wow, I want this for myself. And that inspires me. It's not, and that's why so most of the time I'm not very starstruck if I run into people or something, because I don't really feel that need or urge to be famous or make something really big. Or the only urge that I really have is change people's perspectives.
What's your dream project?
My dream project. My dream project would be a story about how my family managed themselves from going from a very small home in Totnes, Coroni, to having homes in the Netherlands. Because they had a certain system, which is there were 11 children in the house. Now, it actually starts with my grandfather. He had to build a house for my grandmother. And then they had 11 children. And they had this system. My grandfather and my grandmother paid for the first person's education. He got an education. Then the 3 of them paid for the next. Then the 5 of them paid for the next. And then that goes on. And they moved from Coroni to Paramaribo, each one of them.
Wow.
And they did the same thing going from Paramaribo to Amsterdam. So in one generation, they broke rules.
Yeah.
And in one generation, their children grew up on the other side of the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that being able to tell that story would not only be a dream project, but I think that would be a good fundament for the rest of the family to understand where they come from.
So brands are so influential, especially the big ones, of course.
Yeah.
They have really loud voices. How can they do to make sure those voices are authentic, credible, relevant, without taking away a culture?
I think brands should realize they're not just a brand, but also a bunch of people with an opinion. I think if brands would stop making content from a brand perspective, but more from a social perspective, it will become more authentic. I think a brand doesn't have to have one voice. It has to have one goal, but it doesn't have to have one tone of voice. You can do it in a lot of different ways. But a brand's goal, of course, should be very clear. But it doesn't have to have one voice. The same goal could be told from different angles. And I think if you realize as a brand that you're not just a brand, but also just people that are together from all these different cultures, then you might get different boarding room conversations. Yeah. And from those boarding room might become that you might get different concepts from there. And you might get a different feel to a certain brand. So I do think that's something that brands could really do. Just realize that you're also a bunch of people with an opinion next to a brand voice.
Yeah. Do you think the creative industry in the Netherlands is becoming more diverse and inclusive?
No.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No. They're trying, but no. Yeah. There's a few agencies doing a good job, but there's a lot of work to be done. If you're a creative in the advertising industry, but you're not living your subject.
Mm-hmm.
You just go home and then you think, oh yeah, you know what would be cool if we take this culture, if we take this idea, or blah blah blah. If you're not living the culture, and if you're not after your work at least skating or doing something, you're not ever going to be able to depict it the way it is.
No.
And what the advertising industry as a whole does is borrow concept and borrow ideas without actually living them, and then making this construct of it.
Yeah.
That's what needs to change. I think that's what my biggest frustration is. And that's also one of the reasons why my work feels like documentary.
Yeah.
And it feels a very organic way, because I try to live what I make.
Saf, thank you very much for being on board. Thank you for this amazing conversation. Every time I speak to you, I get so much energy out of you. So thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem.
Wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
And speak soon.
Thank you. It was awesome to be here as well.